Good evening. Welcome to Just Chatting. A Just Chatting / Lives of the Saints episode. I wasn't sure what I was going to do tonight. Jeremy's not able to be here, and I really don't like being just by myself on the camera. But I thought it might be nice just to do a Just Chatting evening. I was going to share the life of a saint, though, just because this is lives. Oh, Jedediah, thank goodness. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna copy paste the link in here. There we go. Hey, Chris. I am sharing the life of a saint. Yeah, jump in, Jedediah, anybody who wants to jump in. I'm just going to go ahead and read. I might not see you down there till I'm finished reading this. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen, I believe. See if I can do this on my end. I can do it with Jeremy. All right, let's go. There we go. Let me see. Okay, good. You guys can see that. All right. So we're going to talk about the life of Saint Nikolai. It says of Zika here. He's also known as Saint Nikolai Velimirovich. Saint Nikolai of Zika, the Serbian Chrysostom, was born in Lelech in western Serbia on January the 4th, 1881. His parents were Dragomir and Catherine Velimirovich, who lived on a farm where they raised a large family. His pious mother was a major influence on his spiritual development, teaching him by word and especially by example. As a small child, Nikolai often walked 3 miles to the Kelye Monastery, I'm going to guess, with his mother to attend services there. Sickly as a child, Nikolai was not physically strong as an adult. He failed his physical requirements when he applied to the military academy, but his excellent academic qualifications allowed him to enter the St. Sava Seminary in Belgrade, even before he finished preparatory school. After graduating from the seminary in 1905, he earned doctoral degrees from the University of Bern in 1908 and from King's College, Oxford in 1909. When he returned home, he fell ill with dysentery. Vowing to serve God for the rest of his life if he recovered, he was tonsured at the Rakovica Monastery on December the 20th, 1909, and was also ordained to the holy priesthood. In 1910, he went to study in Russia to prepare himself for a teaching position at the seminary in Belgrade. At the Theological Academy, I just realized my microphone isn't even near me. There we go. At the Theological Academy in St. Petersburg, the provost asked him why he had come. He replied, I wanted to be a shepherd. As a child, I tended my father's sheep. Now that I am a man, I wish to tend the rational flock of my heavenly Father. I believe that is the way that has been shown to me. The provost smiled, pleased by his response, then showed the young man to his quarters. After completing his studies, he returned to Belgrade and taught philosophy, logic, history, and foreign languages at the seminary. He spoke 7 languages, and this ability proved very useful to him throughout his life. St. Nikolai was renowned for his sermons, which never lasted more than 20 minutes, and focused on just 3 main points. He taught people the theology of the church in a language they could understand and inspired them to repentance. At the start of World War I, Archimandrite Nikolai was sent to England on a diplomatic mission to seek help in the struggle of the Serbs against Austria. His doctorate from Oxford gained him an invitation to speak at Westminster Abbey. He remained in England for 3 short months, but St. Nikolai left a lasting impression on those who heard him. His writings, The Lord's Commandments and Meditation on the Lord's Prayer, impressed many in the Church of England. Archimandrite Nikolai left England and went to America, where he proved to be a good ambassador for his nation and his church. The future saint returned to Serbia in 1919, where he was consecrated as Bishop of Zika and was later transferred to Ohrid. The new hierarch assisted those who were suffering from the ravages of war by establishing orphanages and helping the poor. Bishop Nikolai took over as leader of, I'm going to skip that one, Pokret, a popular movement for the spiritual revival, which encouraged people to pray and read the Bible. Under the bishop's direction, it also contributed to a renewal of monasticism. Monasteries were restored and reopened, and this in turn revitalized the spiritual life of the Serbian people. In 1921, Bishop Nikolai was invited to visit America again and spent 2 years as a missionary bishop. He gave more than 100 talks in less than 6 months, raising funds for his orphanages. Over the next 20 years, he lectured in various churches and universities. When Germany invaded Yugoslavia on April 6, 1941, Bishop Nikolai, a fearless critic of the Nazis, was arrested and confined in Lubostir Vojlovici Monastery. In 1944, he and Patriarch Gavrilo were sent to the death camp at Dachau. There he witnessed many atrocities and was tortured himself. When American troops liberated the prisoners in May 1945, the Patriarch returned to Yugoslavia, but Bishop Nikolai went to England. The communist leader Tito was just coming to power in Yugoslavia, where he persecuted the church and crushed those who opposed him. Therefore, Bishop Nikolai believed he could serve the Serbian people more effectively by remaining abroad. He went to America in 1946, following a hectic schedule in spite of his health problems, which were exacerbated by his time in Dachau. He taught for 3 years at St. Sava's Seminary in Libertyville, Illinois, before he settled at St. Tikhon's Monastery in South Canaan, Pennsylvania, in 1951. He taught at St. Tikhon's and also served as the seminary's dean and rector. He was also a guest lecturer at St. Vladimir Seminary in New York and at Holy Trinity Monastery in Jordanville, New York. On Saturday, March the 17th, 1956, Bishop Nikolai served his last liturgy. After the service, he went to the Trapeza and gave a short talk. As he was leaving, he bowed low and said, "Forgive me, brothers." This was something unusual which he had not done before. On March 18, 1956, St. Nikolai fell asleep in the Lord, whom he had served throughout his life. He was found in his room kneeling in an attitude of prayer. Though he was buried at St. Sava's Monastery in Libertyville, Illinois, he had always expressed a desire to be buried in his homeland. In April of 1991, his relics were transferred to the Chetnie Monastery in Lelich, where he was buried next to his friend and disciple, Father Justin Popovich. English readers are familiar with St. Nikolai's prologue from Ohrid, The Life of St. Sava, A Treasury of Serbian Spirituality, and other writings which are of great benefit for the whole church. He thought of his writings as silent sermons addressed to people who would never hear him preach. In his life and writings, the grace of the Holy Spirit shone forth for all to see. But in his humility, he considered himself the least of men. Though he was a native of Serbia, St. Nikolai has a universal significance for Orthodox Christians in all countries. He was like a candle set upon a candlestick, giving light to all, Matthew 5:15. A spiritual guide and teacher with a magnetic personality, he attracted many people to himself. He also loved them, seeing the image of God in each person he met. He had a special love for children who hastened to receive his blessing whenever they saw him in the street. He was a man of compunctionate prayer and possessed a gift of tears which purify the soul. St. John Climacus, Ladder, Step 7. He was a true pastor to his flock, protecting them from spiritual wolves and guiding them on the path to salvation. He has left many soul-profiting writings which proclaim the truth of Christ to modern man. In them, he exhorts people to love God and to live a life of virtue and holiness. May we all also be found worthy of the kingdom of heaven through the prayers of St. Nikolai and by the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever. Amen. Oh, and there's Jedediah. Hey.
Hey there, how you doing, Sherry?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Doing well. It's been a while since I've had the chance to see you.
I know. I know. Yeah. I also wanted to just read a short excerpt from, or a short, they're called prayers. It's a book, Prayers by the Lake, and it's written by Saint Nikolai
Okay.
Velimirovich. And I'm looking for a specific one, but I, of course, did not look for it beforehand. So
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to find it, and otherwise I'll just read what I come across. And there is no table of contents. Okay, I'm going to read what I've already read once, at least. All right. So this is the first one. First and second probably I'll read. Who is that staring at me through all the stars in heaven and all the creatures on earth? Cover your eyes, stars and creatures. Do not look upon my nakedness. Shame torments me enough through my own eyes. What is there for you to see? A tree of life that has been reduced to a thorn on the road that pricks both itself and others? What else, except a heavenly flame immersed in mud, a flame that neither gives light nor goes out? Plowmen, it is not your plowing that matters, but the Lord who watches. Singers, it is not your singing that matters, but the Lord who listens. Sleepers, it is not your sleeping that matters, but the Lord who wakens. It is not the pools of water in the rocks around the lake that matter, but the lake itself. What is all human time but a wave that moistens the burning sand on the shore and then regrets that it left the lake because it has dried up? O stars and creatures, do not look at me with your eyes, but at the Lord. He alone sees. Look at him, and you will see yourselves in your homeland. What do you see when you look at me? A picture of your exile? A mirror of your fleeting transitoriness? O Lord, my beautiful veil, embroidered with golden seraphim, drape over my face like a veil over the face of a widow, and collect my tears in which the sorrow of all your creatures seethes. O Lord, my beauty, come and visit me, lest I be ashamed of my nakedness, lest the many thirsty glances that are falling upon me return home thirsty. Yeah.
And I came in a little bit late. I wasn't able to hear everything. So what was the name of the saint that we were?
His name is Saint Nikolai Velimirovich, and he's a modern saint. He died in 1956.
Okay.
And I just found out that he also went to Dachau, which I didn't know before I read it tonight. He was a Serbian Orthodox Christian and became a bishop, but spent the rest of his years in America at St. Tikhon's monastery and seminary.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And you'll love, I'm going to read this one. I read it last Lives of the Saints episode, but I think you'll really love this. So I'm going to read, this is one more from this book, but it's the one I couldn't find in the book, but I have it here. So it's called, well, it's from Prayers by the Lake. All the prophets have from the beginning cried out to my soul, imploring her to make herself a virgin and prepare herself to receive the divine Son into her immaculate womb. So this is like Meister Eckhart's Christmas sermon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imploring her to become a ladder down which God will descend into the world and up which man will ascend to God. Imploring her to drain the Red Sea of sanguinary passions within herself so that man, the slave, can cross over to the promised land, the land of freedom. The wise man of China admonishes my soul to be peaceful and still and to wait for the Tao to act within her. Glory be the memory of Lao Tzu, the teacher and prophet of his people. The wise man of India teaches my soul not to be afraid of suffering, but through the arduous and relentless drilling in purification and prayer, to elevate herself to the one on high, who will come out to greet her and manifest to her his face and his power. Glorious be the memory of Krishna, the teacher and prophet of his people. The royal son of India teaches my soul to empty herself completely of every seed and crop of the world, to abandon all the serpentine allurements of frail and shadowy matter, and then, in vacuity, tranquility, purity, and bliss, to await nirvana. Blessed be the memory of Buddha, the royal son and inexorable teacher of his people. The thunderous wise man of Persia tells my soul that there is nothing in the world except light and darkness, and that the soul must break free from the darkness as the day does from the night. For the sons of light are conceived from the light, and the sons of darkness are conceived from darkness. Glorious be the memory of Zoroaster, the great prophet of his people. The prophet of Israel cries out to my soul, behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, whose name will be the God-man. Glorious be the memory of Isaiah, the clairvoyant prophet of my soul. O heavenly Lord, open the hearing of my soul, lest she become deaf to the counsels of your messenger. Do not slay the prophets sent to you, my soul, for their graves contain not them, but those who slew them. Wash and cleanse yourself. Become tranquil amid the turbulent sea of the world, and keep within yourself the counsels of the prophets sent to you. Surrender yourself entirely to the one on high, and say to the world, I have nothing for you. Even the most righteous of the sons of men who believe in you are merely feeble shadows, which, like the righteous Joseph, walk in your shadow. For mortality begets mortality and not life. Truly I say to you, earthly husbands are mistaken when they say that they give life. They do not give it, but ruin it. They push life into the Red Sea and drown it, and beforehand they wrap it in darkness and make it a diabolical illusion. There is no life, O soul, unless it comes from the Holy Spirit, nor is there any reality in the world unless it comes down from heaven. Do not slay the prophets sent to you, my soul, for killing is only an illusion of shadows. Do not kill, for you can slay no one but yourself. Be a virgin, my soul, for virginity of the soul is the only semi-reality in a world of shadows, a semi-reality until God is born within her. Then the soul becomes a full reality. Be wise, my virgin, and cordially receive the precious gifts of the wise men from the East, intended for your son. Do not glance back toward the West, where the sun sets, and do not crave gifts that are figmental and false.
Wow. I love that.
I thought you would like that one.
Oh yeah. It made me this week I've been in meditations on the tarot, so I've been reading on the Hanged Man, and it sounded to me
like a hanged man.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. I guess if you've been in Dachau, you've been a bit of a hanged man, right?
In more than one way. That's really remarkable. And I love that there are, not being Orthodox myself, but I love that there are expressions of Orthodoxy with that sense of generosity for God's work in other cultures and in other contexts. And
I love really, how he equated it with the gifts from the wise men at the Nativity.
Right.
The wise men from the East. And strangely enough, I listened to a talk with Jonathan Pajot today, where he literally, I'm sure he took it from this, because he said almost word for word, how did that go now? Do not glance back toward the West where the sun sets. That's what Pajot said. And I'm like, oh, he must have read that.
It's so interesting. You're going to have to send me the link to that book. You have to email me that so that I can pick up a copy of that. That's
yeah. I've had it. I've had this, 7 years now. And it was sent to me by a dear friend who used to be on Bridges of Meaning named Daniel. I don't think he's there anymore. And he sent me this book and my first icon of the Theotokos. I showed it in the last one, just a little traveling one. And I read probably 10 pages in this book, and then it got put in the bookshelf and forgotten. And then somebody posted that last one I read on the Grail Country Discord, and I was like, wait a minute, I have that book. I have to read it.
That is so, yeah, it's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Definitely is. Yes. So I figured we need to hear about Saint Nikolai. He's a special person. He was he was called the modern day Chrysostom, because Chrysostom was a good speaker, a good orator.
Yeah, so eloquent. Yeah.
Eloquent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he had that same gift, and obviously, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because he sounds like, so often in that second prayer you read, especially, I mean, it sounds like he's deeply steeped in the writings of Eckhart.
Yeah. And Buddha and Tao.
Yeah.
I mean, and Lao Tzu, and like he couldn't have said that with any confidence had he not engaged with the spiritual texts of those cultures, right?
Right.
Like, he seems to be a man of integrity, so I doubt highly that he would have just
made some offhanded reference.
Yeah, as a bishop.
Right. That's so fascinating.
It is.
It reminded me, actually, it's so weird that we get a chance to talk today, but if you don't mind, if I build off of that with
let's go.
a bridge to Eckhart.
Let's.
So I'm in the middle of like a really fun, exciting transition, leaving my current job to start a business, and so I've got a lot going on, and but I've been able to begin to set my own schedule, so I've been able to carve out more time for just my own contemplation and getting that.
One second, I'm just noticing your hat.
Oh, the hat?
Yes. Tell me about this hat first.
There was like I saw, what was it? There's a country star, like kind of rising in the alt country world. I think his name is Steven Wilson Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And his music is like incredible. And I saw him performing in a hat that looks very similar to this. I was like, oh man, that's cool. So it took me a while to find one.
Is that the Theotokos?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's the Virgin de Guadalupe icon, which is very common down here in Southern California, with our proximity to like Latino culture. So so he had a hat like that, and I was like, wow, that is so cool. So I actually ordered one like this, and there's a white one that I have as well.
Okay, lovely. Good.
It's good. I carry mom with me everywhere I go.
Yeah, you got to bring that divine feminine into the world, right?
Maybe I can absorb some through osmosis or something.
Mary in the house. That's right, Ron.
Mm-hmm. Mary
in the house. Yeah. Just make sure you don't take her to Vegas or anything like that, okay?
Yeah. Well, she probably gets a lot of prayers from Vegas.
I'm sure she does. Yes.
So.
Okay.
But anyway, so
I interrupted.
So last night I was spending some time. I've been reading. I'll see if I can pull the book. I've been reading some writings in Zen, and there was like a book of an anthology of essays that was like Eric Fromm, Alan Watts, kind of the older hippie generation kind of spiritual guys, essentially, that really got into the Zen movement. And so they were kind of this interdisciplinary conversation between East and West. It was really cool. So in that book, Meister Eckhart features, pretty large as a really important bridge between Christian concepts of divine union and Buddhist concepts of enlightenment, right? And so, anyway, I had just, that was kind of in the background, and I spent some time. One of the things I noticed, just in terms of just for my own mental well-being, is to spend that time in that breath work, right? Just focusing
Mhm.
on the breath and meditating through the breath. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Trikashaiva concept of spanda, and it's essentially like it's the vibrating, pulsating aspect of reality that gives rise to everything. And so as I was breathing in and out, I was getting the mental image that was coming uh, was out of Genesis 1, with the spirit of the God hovering on the water, the spirit of God hovering on the waters, right? And so I saw that this kind of that breathing in and out. I just
Mm.
was it was occurring to me that this is the kind of the fundamental, this is the beginning, the alpha beat that upholds all of creation, is that breath striking the water, and then underneath the waters, underneath the deep, is the land that's being called forth. And I was thinking about that in light of um, almost like a mental image, in light of some of Eckhарт's writings about the silent ground that's
Mhm.
beneath all of that. And so I was just getting that visual image of breath going over water and then down to the depths, where there's the silent ground all the way down at the bottom.
Right.
That isn't really a bottom, because there's no bottom to the depths, but
Mhm,
the
mhm.
mental
Yeah.
image, just to retain a mental image, is kind of a way to visualize what I was experiencing there. Is what it seemed to me is like there's this movement at the heart of reality that begins in that silence, and then everything, it's almost like that silence percolates, and then the breath on top of the waters, and then all of a sudden everything comes out of that. And
Mhm.
it was really powerful. It was a powerful sense of um, that moment of creation is where Christ is born, right?
Right.
Which is down at the silent ground. And
You might hang on a
sure,
second, Chad.
yeah,
My internet is totally struggling here. Hang on. I'm just gonna jump up and run around a little bit. It's my
okay.
internet dance.
Oh, I forgot that there is the State of the Union tonight. Yeah, I definitely would rather be here as well, Ron. Just so you and I both. That's a yeah, yeah, a lot nicer to sit down and talk with friends. I'll probably watch a recording later on. But it does look like, fortunately for anybody that is tuned in here, it looks like Sherry's dog is in great shape. Can somebody send in a comment here real quick, just to see if the stream is still going? It looks like it still is. I've just logged in from a different computer than I normally am on. Do we get
Are you
things
there?
figured out? I am here. Can you see me?
I hope I hope so. I hope so. I'll just keep an eye on it.
Okay.
We got some weather happening, so yeah. Okay. Sorry for that.
Oh, no worries. Oh,
Am I lag am I lagging?
I don't think you're lagging. I, I
You
don't, like, I hear you coming through nice and clear.
okay. Maybe I'll just shut my camera off for a bit, and then but I'm still here and I'm listening, Jed, so if you can remember where you were, just pick up where you left off.
Yeah. So but anyway, so this movement from down below, down at that silent ground, it was very interesting because it was almost like it reminded me very much of the Buddhist notion of shunyata,
Right.
where it's like this. It's not it's not like a void of total and absolute nothingness. That's not what that no thingness is. It's just that it's the ground of all potentiality. It's where things can arise from.
Yeah.
And so it was just interesting because it's like learning as I learned to sit more and more and more in silence. It is interesting because you can become aware of these realities emerging and coming into being inside of you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just there's just that interesting point of connection, and it's interesting to see that for those of us that like to go out and kind of experience these things,
Yeah.
that what we're hearing about in these writings is actually these are experiences that are there and available to be had if you are willing to cultivate the disciplines to try them.
Well, I would even say that they wouldn't be written down if they hadn't been experienced.
Right.
This is the thing that people just don't get. Nobody writes down shit that they haven't experienced.
Right.
It's the experience that comes first.
Right.
Okay? Like that's the thing that gives substance to what they're writing down. So, hey, Jonathan, I threw another link in if you want to join us. This is a Just Chatting. So whoever wants to jump in, please jump in. It's fun. And there's
fun.
Lots of folks. Yeah, I've been in that conversation that Jonathan Pajot had that I watched today. It was good. It was I can't remember the guy's name. It was some podcast that I hadn't really ever seen before. Oh, there he is. Good. Hey.
Oh,
Jonathan, what's going on?
Not much. How's it going?
I think it's the first time you and I have ever been in a chat together.
I was just going to say.
Your channel, by the way.
I feel like we might have crossed ways, but I think you might be right. It's
yeah.
nice to meet you. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think you need your mic, Jonathan. Yes. You did what I did.
Got a link to get prepared before I didn't. I was like, oh, she's adding me in. I gotta get ready.
You got like some medieval knights approaching over at you.
I did hear that before. It was right when I hit enter on my comment. It went. I was like, whoa.
Jed's got medieval knights approaching.
Oh yeah, it's my my phone alert. I have to get I get people give me a hard time for this all the time, and they should. I absolutely deserve it. But if I don't have some loud obnoxious ringer, I don't hear it.
Yeah,
right. I just completely tune it out. So that's why you heard the little Ewok horns going off in the distance because I didn't silence my phone.
I was hesitating to join because I didn't want to interrupt. You guys haven't talked in a while.
No,
but
it's just chatting.
All the dings just kept adding up, and then when you just said experience, I was like, now I have to join because I was just editing a clip of Viveki and DC Schindler talking about this experience as primary and stuff, and I listened when you read about I forget the name of the saint you were talking about, but then I went back to editing for a little bit, but then I came back and yeah, also what you were just saying about the silence. That's a very numinous concept to me. It's kind of like numinous experience, I suppose. And then the thing where you were talking about the ground just reminded me of this thing with I heard it mostly through this guy Formscapes. His name is Keelan. I'm not sure if you're familiar, Jed, but he's
not familiar.
Got it from Goethe, and other people talk about this, and I think it fits with all sorts of stuff, and it fits with your hat as well. And it's like form and formlessness, where it's like Goethe talks about color being the interplay of light and darkness, and I think about this as corresponding with the spirit, the water. It's like it's not that formlessness is just an absence of form, but it's like its own it's like they're both the two primary things in a sense. But
Yeah, that's a foundational concept in Zen.
yeah, and like formlessness as this what's the word that you just said, the word that's like the
Shunyata.
shunyata, yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So like they oftentimes, like, there's a metaphor that gets used. And it reminds me, I feel like the Christian analog is invariably going to go towards kenosis, but it's very helpful. The image, as it's been explained to me, is that, every cup is empty, right? There's like, in order for it to be a cup, it has the form of the cup, but it also must be empty of the form in order for it to be filled. And so it's this idea that form and formlessness are united in some mysterious way as kind of corollaries.
The way that it's still like I have a hard time getting my mind around it.
Yeah, because you're abstracting it out. No, I mean, I'm honestly, like, for me, I'm listening to you guys, and you're using Zen terminology and propositions to explain a mystical experience with God, essentially. Okay, so my question, and I'm not scolding you, even though I might sound like I am scolding you.
It's like water off a duck's back.
Good. What I'm trying to do is reclaim some things back, because Christianity has worn out their language to the point that people have to describe Christian concepts in Buddhist terms or Taoist terms, or like they're or Steiner's terms, or they're reaching for, because we can't say the things that we've heard all our lives in Sunday school anymore. People don't hear it. They just don't hear it. But what I love is that Jesus told us stories to illustrate these things. So my question to you guys is, can you think of a story that Jesus told to illustrate what you're talking about?
Think of a story that Jesus told that would illustrate, like, in the form and formlessness specifically?
Well, or kenosis, because you said it's terminology. It's kenosis or shunyata. What is shunyata for a Christian? Like, how would if you asked Jesus to describe shunyata, what would Jesus say?
What would Jesus say to that? That's very interesting.
Thought experiment.
You're going to have to give me a minute, because that is such a fascinating question. I'm going to need to chew on that for a second.
What does this mean, Nathan? Kora chora?
It's like also like the Kora. I'm still new to this idea, but it's basically Plato's word for the formlessness, like the field space where everything is, like the potential into which the creative seed is implanted, kind of like or like the identity is pulled out of this or something like that.
Well, I don't know, like, because I'm trying to translate into parables what you guys are talking about. That's why I asked the question. That's literally what I'm trying to do. And the one that
I think that, like, the one that does come to mind is, I think that the concept is implicit in the exchange. So I'll say that. I think that the concept is explicit in the exchange here. Is just the short parable of the kind of the twin parables of the pearl of great price and the treasure hidden in the field. Okay. I mean, the Christian concept of and like where that shunyata shows up, if I'm like trying to scour that
Mhm.
parable, because it's a short parable of, the man who finds a treasure buried in a field that was of such great worth that he left, went home, sold everything he had, bought the field so that he could have the treasure.
Mhm, mhm.
Right. And so the emptiness is actually, to me, is in the movement between
Ah.
episodes.
Mhm.
Okay. So between the episode of discovery and then the sale of everything, which is a self-emptying act, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there's, so this guy has to cease to identify himself in any meaningful way with all that he had possessed before discovering this treasure.
Okay. So what I'm
And in that act of ceasing,
Mm.
in that space where he says, I am no longer the guy who owns all this stuff.
Mhm.
I'm going to sell it all and I'm going to buy something worth more.
Which
Right?
requires
That
letting everything go.
letting everything go. Right. In a sense, like he's letting go of a prior identity, which would be very much in line with some of the Buddhist teachings of no self, or at least letting go of your narrow self concept. Right.
Right.
So that would be like a way that would be just the one that I can think of in terms of Jesus's parables where I see that concept. There's probably other places where you could pull it from as well.
Well,
But
I
that would
was
be
thinking, about when Jesus said, unless a seed dies, goes into the ground and dies.
right. Okay. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's
Right.
pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Like,
Another one that comes to mind is like the story of Mary opening the space at the wedding of Cana. She like presents the Korah to Christ, like he presents the possibility space.
potential.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
That
all the
potential?
possibility.
Mhm.
I was gonna connect it to this clip that I was talking about, but it's hard to like figure out exactly what they're saying because it's kind of a little bit. It's almost like I can't. Might be beyond me, but like they were putting it in the context of love, like where love is you can actually I don't know, it's like this I don't know about seeing they were talking about like seeing experiencing from the other person's perspective. I don't know how that relates to the formlessness thing, but
Well,
precisely
it's formless because it doesn't exist yet. Like, and all of this is very woomy to me.
Mhm.
Okay, because and that's actually what Saint Nikolai says in that last one that I read. He's talking about that virginal space in us, which is what Meister Eckhart is talking about, which seems to be, what this Korah, where'd it go now? Korah.
Yeah.
What things rise from, which is shunyata. I'm just trying to. This is how my mind works, right?
Yeah,
So
there's definitely a connection with like the mode of receiving or something like that. That's definitely I
right.
remember.
And so what this reminds me of is a conversation I had. It was a long time ago. I can't remember who was in it, but they were talking about the womb as an empty space, and I said, "Wait, the womb is not an empty space. Not to a woman. The womb is potential."
Mhm. It's like
If she didn't have a womb, that would be an empty space. An empty space, a womb as an empty space would be grounds to grieve if you were a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
A womb is potential itself, because that's where something can be conceived and can develop and grow and become something, right?
Okay, so now you're getting a lot closer to shunyata.
Ah.
Yeah.
So this is like the shunyata, the emptiness of shunyata is not, like I said, it's not a void of
It's not.
Yeah, like,
an absolute nothingness. It is It's no thingness, is that pure potency,
Right.
right?
That's
And
amazing.
so it's not. Think of it as this, right? And it is a place where it's unconditioned potentiality. So there's no conditions upon it. Like
Right.
for us, like all of my potencies are filtered through a vast nexus and network of conditioning, whether that's my career training, my education, my
Right.
upbringing,
Right. Yeah. You're bound by
all
your.
these things. I'm conditioned by all these things. But when you are able to, and it's the same thing in Eckhart, right, is to go to that silent ground beyond your own conditioning, which we all have good and bad conditioning that comprises how we experience our empirical ego. To let go of that conditioning is to place yourself in that space. I think Eckhart is talking about that is where this the virgin ground where Christ is born. That's what he's talking about, is that Christ is born now within us in that same space as the fullness that arises out of the emptiness.
Right. And you used the parable of the guy that sells everything and to buy the field, right? For the pearl of great price. Well, that is a story about letting, like, not having. So it's a movement from grasping, holding, to having an open hand, right? Because if you have nothing except for a field and a pearl, you still have nothing in a sense, right? Like you don't have anything, any means to build something for yourself. Like it's an open-handed position to be in, right? I think. And it's full of potential, because anything like the open field is like the womb in a sense. All kinds of things can grow there, right?
Right. And maybe that was in some sense, that was the treasure. Was this man was able to discover,
letting go?
In letting go of himself, in his prior identifications, he found that field of pure potency where literally everything is possible.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't possess any of it. Like you can have it, like you're trading this for that, and at some level you're exchanging. There's the exchange we're talking about, but in some sense, it's not a thing to possess. It's just what he has to divest himself of this prior identification in order to participate in this deeper reality.
And the word experience comes back to me again at this point. It's like to participate in the experiencing or something. And yeah.
I want to read you a quick dialogue out of The Wise Woman. That I've read this before, but it's really cool. It's really hitting right now.
Sure.
Won't you give me a little flower, please, you beautiful child? And the beautiful child is God. Okay, it's God in the form of a child sitting in a field with flowers in his lap, her lap. Won't you give me a little flower, please, you beautiful child? There they are. They're all for you, answered the child, pointing with her outstretched arm and forefinger all round. But you told me a minute ago not to touch them. Yes, indeed, I did. They can't be mine if I'm not to touch them. If to call them yours, you must kill them, then they are not yours, and never, never can be yours. They are nobody's when they are dead. But you don't kill them. I don't pick them. I throw them away. I live them. How is it that you make them grow? I say, you darling, and throw it away, and there it is. Where do you get them? In my lap. I wish you would let me throw one away. Have you got any in your lap? Let me see. No, I have none. Then you can't throw one away if you haven't got one. I love that exchange so much. I love it so much because it's exactly what you're talking about, Jed. It's not about possessing. It's about throwing things away and living them. right? And when he says I live them, it's a verb. I cause them to be, right? Not I'm living them, but I live them. It's a verb.
Yeah. So I got these little flashcard thingies, like somebody gifted them to me. Oh, they're not flashcards. They're these little cards with little sayings from Thich Nhat Hanh, who's one of my favorite Buddhist monks, activist, authors, really beautiful things. Yeah. What you're saying, this is just a quick little snippet of something he has to say that actually connects to that in a very interesting way. He says this, so the title of this card says, we are vast. We are in the habit of identifying ourselves with our bodies. The idea that we are this body is deeply entrenched in us, but we are not just this body. We are much more than that. The idea that this body is me and I am this body is an idea we must get rid of. If we do not, we will suffer a great deal. We are life, and life is far vaster than this body, this concept, this mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in that famous poem that Meister Eckhart wrote, that they've been trying to puzzle over forever, he actually says, there's a line in there that's something like, "It is neither this nor that." Right? It's this categorical. Well, it's a manifestation of either or, really.
Isn't that what they say in there's something in, I don't remember if it was Buddhism or Taoism. I remember it was either Ram Dass or Watts who would always talk about this, thatness, and like there would be this and that. And I think Alan Watts probably made it up, but he's like, the first word that baby would say is da, and it's that, like this identifying an object or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a deep.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think that like the.
Isn't that nominalism? Isn't that the heart of nominalism?
I always learn that word and then forget exactly what it means. But isn't it basically like
to name?
Yeah.
This.
It's like that things are just their kind of definitions, basically, right?
Right. Like the this and that is it's a question of what category do they belong in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And categories are ways of naming things.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the silent ground or something that could try and kind of get back there, like there's the formlessness is like, that's when, I don't know, there's also maybe that connection of the listening to the animals insofar as instead of naming the animals, listening to the corporeal element, the Cora, hearing or something. I don't know. Silence is such a weird thing. It's so interesting to me because like there's always activity happening. And if we think about language as like everything is the words of God, it's all language happening, then, we can talk about audible silence, but then there's like stillness. It's just, there's so many things going on. And then the fact that silence is actually, when you have both the up and the down, right? It's like, yeah, it's interesting stuff. I really wanted to try and like explain this connection to Vervaeke, but I don't, to N. Schindler talking about this, but because I think it's super fitting, but I don't know if I'll be able to do it. It's a little bit beyond me.
Yeah. It's one of the things too when as we've been kind of going through the question of silence that I think. So if you take the time to cultivate the silence, right? Because Jonathan, you made an interesting point as far as like sound travels on a wave and silence is kind of, there's a rhythm to silence and sound, right? There's a beat there's a silence between every sound that gets made. So silence is ubiquitous.
If it's silent enough, you can hear your blood in your ears.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They've got those those completely sealed off, like, soundproof rooms where you can like hear all of your organs and stuff.
I can hear my blood in my ears if I go sit at the lake at my house, like especially in the winter when there's no birds. Just like
and it's snow on the ground, so there's all that insulation.
It's really quite annoying.
I forget the context, but I was listening to a video today and they were talking about like the world's most silent room, and I forget what it was about, and like about how like people would go crazy if they're in there, like as they hear their heartbeat and stuff or something.
Hear your heartbeat, and I've got a growly tummy, so it's always talking. But
I wish I could remember what they were talking about in the video. But
well, to connect this back into that question of silence, though, like one of the things that the silence puts, what I have found is the silence puts to question our God concept. So good.
What did you say? I missed it. There was something in the way.
Oh,
Yeah,
young God
God.
had a good
When I
one.
go to sleep and I hear my heart beating, I tell it, "Don't stop now."
But anyway, so the silence, like one of the things that you have to let go of in the silence is your concepts, including your God concept.
And they'll just keep coming back like little demons. They'll be knocking
Well,
on the door.
you can step back into other, kind of your walking around awareness, and like you're still think of God and that, I relate to God, in and through Christ, and that has been empowered through the Holy Spirit in such a way that I have an abiding relationship with the Father. That concept is a living concept in my life, right? That's a very real reality that I do experience. But it's almost like what I'm finding is it's almost like in my sense of like the Father's urging is like, God is not a consummate egotist. We can let him go if we're trying to go into that silent ground where we get to experience the same kind of being that God is in the silence. That's what he's inviting us into, which means you have to, it's like, it's being dropped into an experience from the inside, and you can't bring your words and your context and your concepts to fill in the spaces. It's just you and God in some sense, but not your God concept.
What is
right? And Eckhart talks about that. Like you have to, even the idea of God, you have to let go of in order to go to that silent ground.
This is exactly what DC Schumacher and Viveki were talking about. And they said it's the difference between concept and something else. And he talked about how there's this idea that the things of God are suffered rather than like grasped. Or I didn't think you used the word grasp, but like suffered rather than like hathein versus pathein or something, and you have to undergo it. And yeah, I don't know. Another thing that came to mind while you were talking was how I think that like really difficult experiences can also do this, where you have like a really pestering mind or something, like whether it be depression or like over self-criticism, such that then to like that can be I think a learning point for some people, that then to go back to the experiencing, and like Sherry was saying, like the concepts and the definitions, nominal categories and stuff always come back in, but then sometimes it can like kind of be a rock bottom moment for people, where they then just have to go into the mode of experiencing, rather than, and that's interesting. But then as you were talking about how there are still concepts, I think there is probably a danger there where, if we start to have concepts about the experiencing and we get up into metaphysical things, like it's almost like, talking about theology is like, it's like dangerous almost, because like you can start boxing things, but at the same time, yeah, it can be very useful. Like, yeah. I wish I kind of just want to play this clip. I want to like hijack the stream.
No, it's amazing actually. I just lost my train of thought because I just jumped up and the concept. Like I think that
concept versus percept, like, right? Didn't someone talk about that?
Right, like so there's a way where we can hold the concepts that there's idolatrous and depersonalizing, right? So that like like I find this like especially in like heavily theological discussion circles, right? Is God literally just gets reduced to a set of concepts. that we're having an abstract relationship with these abstract concepts. That's like the actual experience of God is not what's happening in those spaces at times. Like irrespective of maybe outside of those spaces, maybe all those people have wonderful connections with God. I'm not passing judgment on that. But we can get into a space where we idolize the concept so much that we actually, what we have replaced that abiding real relationship with, that is a real relationship is an existential quality to it.
Yeah. And relationship
right? I've
is the key word,
experienced it.
I think, because it's that relationality of love, which is like the in-between space, something about that.
Right. And so to let go of the concept is not to say that the concept is false, right? So like, I don't feel like, coming back out of the contemplative experience into my waking life, into this part of my life, just because I allow those concepts to dissolve in contemplation in order to facilitate the experience of union with God, right? Does not mean that when I come out of that place that I like discard all of my Christian beliefs and concepts. It's just that it helps me to realize that, like Sherry, like what you're talking about, is you hold them
openly
with an open hand.
Yeah,
well, like this is the funny thing about the end of that little dialogue with the beautiful child. She says, "Can I have some of those in my lap? Or can I throw some of those flowers too?" And then the beautiful child says, "Do you have any in your lap?" And then she says, "No, I haven't got any." And then he says, "Well, I guess you can't throw any then." So the question is, how do you get them in your lap? You get the pearl of great price by letting go of everything, right? That's how the beautiful child ends up with a lap full of flowers, because he doesn't possess them, or she doesn't possess them. They're not hers to begin with. She lives them, right? She says, "You darling." She sees them each as a special, right? As individually beautiful. And she throws them out and she lives them, right? And that's why she has so many. That's why she has so many. And the girl who wants to pick them and hold them and keep them, she has none. None. And that's like counterintuitive, right? Like we think in order to have something, you need to pick it. Why would a girl who picks flowers doesn't have any? And the girl who doesn't pick flowers has them all. That's the whole gist of that dialogue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nathan, I don't have access to post that, but that was an excellent.
Our wisdom traditions tend toward apophaticism, song, or poetry. Yeah, of course. Words not as attributes or descriptions, but expressed as human noises and negated as captures, correlation, or conceptual.
It also reminds me of the idea of iconic, like iconicity, and like Luke Thompson talks about like iconic thinking, such that we hold all of our concepts and our ideas like, just iconically, such that they're never. It's not like they could be idolatrous, like you were saying. Like it can be, we can hold them really fixed. Whereas if we see them as kind of like instantiations of ultimately apophatic, mystical experiencing, like I like the idea that, I don't know, what's the idea that like the words are pointers, kind of. It's like concepts are always. I've also been thinking about this idea where everything is like music, or like everything is like I was saying, everything being language, like it's the language of God actually doing let's say, like if everything is moving as language or something like that, like the speech act is happening or something, that when we use concepts, it's kind of like we're pointing to particular musical themes or melodies that it's kind of an agreement. Like we come to, like if I say dog, it's like there's this particular thing, this pattern, which is,
And are you? I'm trying to figure out what. Oh man, I just had a really good thought about what you were saying
I
now.
don't even notice it. It's just kind of.
It's interesting because I just started the course with Michael Martin on William Blake. And William Blake talks about, we're doing the poem Jerusalem, right?
Okay.
Like the big thing, not just the small poem, but the emanation of Albion.
Okay.
And he's making up all his characters, right? He's calling something Los and Albion, and he's got all his own names for things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the premise of Blake, and I don't know a lot about Blake, I'm just learning, but is that Jesus is the imagination, right? Which is the same place that George MacDonald operates out of, like that we live in God's imagination, right? And so essentially, we people concepts. Like, what did I write? This is from a class, actually. I wrote this. Blake gave qualities personalities. Attributes became characters. Ideologies became places. And because he thought in images, he was an engraver. He actually had to write backwards. He had to make everything backwards because when he printed it, it was proper then, right? So imagine, like, the man actually thought in reverse, which is exactly what George MacDonald is talking about when he has the wooden men turned upside down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this whole concept written by Betty Edwards called drawing on the right side of the brain, right? Which is what apophaticism is as well, Nathan. So it's negative space, right? So you look at the thing that isn't, or you describe the thing that isn't, right? Or in painting, you color in all that isn't the picture, and the face emerges out of the negative space.
That reminds me of how sound is like. There's also the interval of where there's not sound, as it were. It's like you can't have sound without the silence, and like the amplitude of the silence, in a sense. It's like there also the wave has to go, like if you see a big waveform, like it has to also go the other way or something. It's like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But what I find
Sherry,
go ahead.
There's just an interesting connection. I want to throw it in there and then I'll give it right back to you. There's a parallel in John Keats as well that he calls negative capacity.
Yes, and this is what Martin.
And so he wrote. He actually, in his letters, he would talk about how that negative capacity was vital to his ability to craft poetry.
Right, and
negative capacity.
And Martin Shaw's been talking about that same thing, and he's been talking about it in terms of Yeats. And
capability, I think, is what
negative capability, and it's all
negative capability.
So you could put that into a real life experience understanding, where you can, and it's basically what the Hesychasts call tears of joy and sorrow. Okay, so you can live in a positive and a negative world at the same time. Okay, that's what gives the poet the energy that he needs in order to write, because he has to be able to see, and this gets to adversity, Jed, both sides of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be able to see both sides of the coin, right? And I don't know about you, Jed, but for me, like, one of the problems I had about writing poetry was that kind of tension. It put me in a place that was really hard for me I felt like it was an unjustified space for some reason, but it was the only place that I could write out of, and I thought, I should be happier. I should be, I shouldn't, why am I always striving? How come whenever I sit down to write a poem, I feel like this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just now learning that that's the only place that you can actually do that from.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, it's like, it's so weird because when you, like invariably, like some of the work that I've, that same experience where sometimes if you feel like you're in a flow state and you're writing, like you go back and it's actually kind of flaccid and lazy,
Yeah.
right? But when you're in that space where you're fighting and scrapping for every word,
Mhm.
it reminds me of like, great wine. You don't want to like overwater or overexpose to sunlight. It makes a
No.
flaccid wine. A wine has to suffer in order for it to be a great wine. And in the art, in a sense, you have to have that negative capacity in art. And the ability for negative experience is actually where it's woven into the fabric of the experience.
Well, here's a short poem that I wrote about just that. And it was about a poem. I wrote this poem about a poem
Okay.
that I was struggling with. I was trying to edit it, actually. I was trying to edit a different poem. And anyway, there you lie on pure white linen, dashes and dots disjointed, groping, lacking, held together. You are old, yet not old. You haven't even been born. Have you no substance? Shall I give it to you? I shall not. For you appear to me like this. I cannot take from you. I cannot add to you. I don't know who you want to be. No, I shall leave you alone. For you will be to me a moment, a whisper, a memory. You will jar me and console and terrify me. You will weigh down on me, make me wring my hands in anger. I will hate you. And you will love me on pure white linen. And I will stumble.
That's so good. It's excellent, Sherry.
That's exactly what negative capability looks like when you're, like, it's a love-hate thing, right?
It's labor.
Yeah. Yeah.
It reminds me of yeah, it's super deep stuff for sure. It reminds me of I've been listening to that OG Rose channel a bunch, and I think it's Hegel who talked a lot about negations. It's interesting, the word negative, like it's there's a real strong negative association with negative, as it were. And it's like to negate is it's an interesting thing. It's like I remember he talked about it. I think he was talking about Hegel, but I don't know. Where it's like you have, or maybe it was Heidegger, like the givenness or something, the things that are impressed on you, and like our mind jumps to conceptualize things and put them in. Like Sherry was saying, they always come back and always trying to put things in. And but then to do a negation is to like be like, I negate this impression and it's like entering the core space, like maybe going into that negative space where you're listening, as it were, or something like that. And then in so doing, then you're actually given the freedom or the opportunity to actually choose your experience, like anew, and to see it in a more iconic way or something like that, or in a more godly way, like to see, because really the way that we attend to the world changes the world we encounter, right? And like and changes the world perhaps and stuff like that, so it's that something about the interesting idea of negation and this negative capability, and how it relates to poetry as well, like because that's when we can see the poetic relations and stuff. If we're stuck in our immediate things, we have to be able to negate our jumping to conclusions.
We need shadows. I was just talking on Rigel's channel on Fridays. Rigel's doing a live stream, folks. It's really great. It's creative. We wrote a song last week
Cool.
live, and everybody's invited to join. Rigel Windsong Thurston is the name of the channel, and what's he calling it? Live from the Earth Dome. And
Dang.
Anyway, I was saying last week that, without shadows, because we were talking about contending with the shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, without shadows, there's no depth to a picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And which reminded me of George MacDonald again, because he said, words have length and words have breadth, but do they have depth?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the lived experience, like going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, the depth, the bottom of the quasi bottom
Mm-hmm.
of the sea. That is your experience. Right. And I mean, without sounding like I'm advertising for self-flagellation or anything, without suffering, without hating and loving at the same time, right? You're not going to write any great poetry. You're just not, and this is one of the things I have to say that I find a little bit grievous. It actually makes my heart sick when people today say to me, if you talk about whatever they deem negative, which is just about everything, unless it's Instagram-ish, then you're putting negativity out into the world, right? And we're supposed to be just putting positivity out, and I'm just like, oh, that's just like gagging with a fork.
Yeah, reminds me of this. Yeah, reminds me of the distinction between like beauty as John Vervaeke always talks about, like beauty as versus just like what's smooth, or like how beauty can also be
terrifying, I think he said.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with the difference between like the Venusian and the solar. I don't know if we want to throw some astrological correspondences, but like, whereas Venusian is all nice and sweet and pleasurable, which has a place, and of course we don't want to get rid of it.
Dostoevsky wrote about that, didn't he? When he said, we could be in heaven, right, soaking in a hot tub with a bunch of beautiful women and lots of wine.
Yeah.
And somebody's gonna stir up some shit just because it's freaking boring.
Yeah.
Like, and that's just my farmer language, but I like to talk like that. I like to keep it really simple, because that's really what it's about, right? Like, so what's happening in Dostoevsky's example, that's from, I think, Notes from the Underground, he talks about that, is he's describing the tension that we need in order to feel like we're living. Right?
Yeah, the tension on the for sure. Yeah, and that creates the wind harp through which poetry happens, as it were,
Well, it's where we sing, right? Like McGilchrist talks about that. Without putting tension on the strings, there's no music that comes off the violin or the guitar or the cello or the, the harp, right? So,
yeah. How are you? That was reminding me, trying to connect it all the way back to then what Jed was saying about breathing, because in this talk about the tension, I'm thinking about the corporeal element, like the spirit above and or something like that. And but then, it got me thinking about breath. And I was thinking, how you feeling, Sherry? I know you were sick the past. Well, you feeling a little better now?
I'm good now.
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I just worked through it.
Nice. I was a little worried about you there. That's good.
Well, I laid on the couch for a couple of days, but I'm good now.
Good. Cool.
Hey guys, I apologize. I got a dog barking downstairs, and I need to go figure out what he's yapping about. So,
are you gonna go?
Somebody knocking on the door. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go off. I'll just go off camera, and then I'll just check on that. I'll be back.
Okay, sounds good, Jed. Don't forget to mute yourself too, in case you start yelling at somebody and we. I'm just kidding. Yeah, this is great.
It's always deep stuff. Always deep stuff here in the Grail country. Here in the pastures, as it were. Yeah.
There was a really good, I'll send it to you, Jonathan. Well, actually, maybe I could find it and show it to everybody too. It was a really great Jonathan Pajot talk that I listened to today.
I listened to one of his today too. I don't know. Maybe it's the same one.
Here it is. So, whoops. I have to wait for the silly ads. Can you hear it if I'm playing it?
I cannot hear it at the moment.
You can't hear it?
No, there might. I think there's a share audio option.
Yeah, no, I don't want to share it actually. I just wanted to bring it up, but I get through the stupid ads.
I think I can hear it very slightly, but I'm not sure.
Whoops. Okay, wait, let's do this. Where is it? Share screen. I'm just practicing. I'm just using this as a practice session. There we go. It's this one. Can you see it?
Yes. Yeah. This is the. Excuse me. Yeah. This is the one I was listening to today as well.
Oh, really?
Let me see where I took the screenshot. Maybe you're thinking of the same thing.
It's about the identity crisis. Is the meaning crisis really an identity crisis? Which I thought was really interesting because that's exactly what Christian Baxter was talking to Luke Freeman about today on his podcast.
I clipped a part right around 13, or I took a screenshot around 13 minutes. I don't know. I'd be curious. Maybe that's the part that stuck out to you, or was there a particular part that stuck out to you?
No, the whole thing was just really good.
Yeah, it was good.
I can do it there. Yeah, I wasn't going to play anything. I'm always afraid to play stuff now instead of in case.
I think you'd be fine if you do commentary on it. So I mean, it's people could claim it about anything, you know.
Yeah.
People could claim it. You could just say hello, and people would be like, "That's copyright," and they could strike your channel. And then you could be like, "This is bullshit," and YouTube would probably say, "Yeah, you're right. This is bullshit."
I know, but this is not my channel. This is Nick's channel.
Or you have to put
I just would rather play it safe.
Yeah.
But that's the one I was listening to, and it was really good. And I don't know why I brought that up now with you. You're back.
I am.
One more thing about the stuff is actually pretty lenient, but I don't know if maybe it's just not always like, you know, it's commentary or anything. Like if you just say, I think this video is bad, and you play a clip, like that's, you know, that's fair use commentary as a, like, according to, I was surprised to see like how open they were actually, but I think sometimes it's maybe just that like the system is over, I don't know, like it's a big and clunky system and stuff like that, and people maybe like put in claims when, I don't know. As you may know, my channel is going through this at the moment, but that's not why I bring it up. It's just,
Yeah.
I think you would be fine with like playing stuff like
Yeah,
you did commentary, but
I'm
Yeah.
good.
okay.
There's so much commentary. Everybody's commenting on everybody else's stuff.
It's true. It's true.
Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to say about that talk that Jonathan Pajot gave, or had with that guy. They were talking about talking.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember that part. I think,
That was so good. They were talking about how in the West we're trying to smash other people's ideas, right? Oh, that's a bad idea. We got to up the game, you know, and I have a better idea. And it just goes from one.
That is the part that I took the screenshots of it, now that I remember. And he was like, maybe we could just talk about it and not do anything. And like, It's something along those lines.
Yeah. And there's that too. There's
Yeah.
I had once written a little riff on T.S. Eliot in one of the extended poems that I'd written, but it was about, his when he talks about whether the world's going to end with a whimper or a bang.
right.
And like in a playful way, I kind of said, the world won't end with a bang or a whimper, but something to the effect of the world won't end with a bang or a whimper, but with someone's good idea.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I think I said that recently in a live stream somewhere. I said, I just want people to stop having good ideas.
Well, I mean, that's one of it's like, I try to be a little, I have other things that I work on outside of here. It makes me, I'm leery to spend too much time myself personally on here because I want to go do stuff. You know what I mean? And I've been like very consciously curating a much more sparse online life over the last few years of actually getting out and being engaged in communities. And it's not to say I enjoy my online interactions, and the talk it can be helpful to a point, but for me, where like it can break down as if it's just because I'm kind of like that tactile kind of person. Like once I've talked about something and it inspires me, it's like if I get an idea that inspires me, I'm going to write a poem about it. Like I want to do something with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that, like learning that, and that balance point's different for everybody. I'm not saying that people need to do what I've done. That's how I've found it, struck a better balance with technology.
Yeah, sure. You've heard me rave about this many times. The matrixification of everything, but not to say that these are useless. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's just like maybe the importance of like what I'm leery of is things that rob me of the ability to have primary experience.
Mm-hmm. I had primary experience today. I was out there with a diesel mechanic up to my ear. We were both covered in diesel. I'm like, I guess I'm christened, right? I was holding the funnel and he was spilling it all over me.
Yeah.
Bloody hormone or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just there was something I was gonna maybe throw this out, and if it's okay, I will. If you think it's a bad idea, that's fine too. But it's from this it's this little title, this out of print book called "The Gospel According to Zen," like that I was telling you about. And so this is a selection from it, and it's Alan Watts. And being typically Alan Watts is going to be provocative, so some people may or may not like what he has to say, but in general, I very much like what he has to say here.
Yeah.
So it's like a couple of quick pages, so we can get through it pretty quickly. So his essay is called "This Is My Body." There has not yet existed a religion or a philosophy in which there has been a true marriage of heaven and earth. There have been many approximations, but never one in which each said to the other without any shadow of reservation, "I love you with all my heart." We have seen the spiritual reduced to the material vaporized in the spiritual. We have seen unhappy compromises in which the spiritual is always saying to the material, "Yes, but." We've seen the material perpetually damned with faint praise and always being talked down to for the odd reason that it consistently changes and flows away as if that were something wrong. Only most occasionally have Hindus had the courage to swing fully with the Lord in dancing his Maya and to stop insisting that in some nasty, niggling last analysis, the physical universe shouldn't be happening. Christian theologians, too, seem to have a commission to protect the deity from full union with his universe, as if this would somehow completely subvert his morals. Indeed, they allow that the creature may participate in, reflect, be adopted into, transfigured by, or given unity with his creator, but always at the end of the line, there's someone wagging his finger saying, "But never forget, little creature, that you are nothing right down to your miserable existence, for your being is not your own. So my body is God's, my mind is God's, my being itself is God's, all on loan to me and no one. But what if I'm not here? I know who is." The basic difficulty seems to be that people in religious circles always need someone or something to blame. I even catch myself doing it when I think about Baptist preachers. Religion somehow attracts those who like to lay down the law and point fingers of accusation, seldom realizing, incidentally, that the congregation just adores a colorful scolding. um, uh, so I would like to say this without condemning anyone, preachers included. The thing is to see all faces as the masks of God, all characters as his roles, preachers included. Toward the end of his life, that extraordinary Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim saint, the poet Kabir, used to look around and ask, "To whom shall I preach?" He saw the face and activity of his beloved in every direction.
Amen.
Obviously, as so many Christians seem to fear, this vision of God as all might be used as a rationalization for indulgence in total wickedness. But fire is not untrue or something to be abolished because it can be used to burn people alive. What they really seem to fear is that if God is all in all, the wicked would not get their just deserts. Someone may lose the satisfaction of knowing that evildoers are going to be boiled in oil and devoured by spiders forever and ever. At this point, it becomes more and more difficult to separate the wicked from the moralists who want to see them properly judged.
Mm-hmm.
In a larger perspective, these theological objections are trivial. They're like avoiding broiled salmon for fear of the bones, or living for fear of dying. It is all a colossal haggling and focusing over fussing over technicalities, a metaphysical filibuster subconsciously designed to postpone the great moment of awakening. Perhaps it is like a woman being intermittently difficult to woo so as to build up all the more passion for the moment when she finally yields. Enough, however, is enough. The moment has arrived when a really thoroughgoing spiritual materialism is the intelligent and essential attitude for the management of technology and for the helping of mankind to be something better than the most predatory monster yet evolved. He goes on to say,
Alan Watts.
This is Alan Watts. In fact, it is impossible to be a true materialist without being a mystic as well. The would-be materialist who renounces mysticism is either a slob or a bore, or both, for there is something profoundly dreary about mere sensuality, the unrelieved panorama of filet mignon, bosoms and bottoms, Chateauneuf du Pape, Alfa Romeos, Chris Crafts, martinis, scrolls by Sishu, Pro Music On, Hi-Fi, Chanel No. 5, and even, alas, water, clouds, light, sand, mountains, and beyond. After a while, all bottoms feel like plastic. Still more dreary is the sensible materialism of the practical and provident, who would scrounge all their lives to provide for themselves with leisure when they can no longer enjoy it. Or the academic materialist, perhaps, who is a scientific empiricist or a logical positivist or a sound statistical psychologist whose real aim is to demonstrate that all nature is perfectly banal and dull. The trouble with this fellow is that no one ever mixed raven's blood with his mother's milk. He is marvelously and uncannily bereft of any sense that existence is odd.
Mm.
At the other extreme, the pure mystic is like pure alcohol or wine without body, intense, strongly principled, quiet-mannered, unobtrusive, devastatingly simple in his needs, and colorless in his tastes. No belly laugh, no good roll with a girl in the hay, no gentle grin of understanding as between a man and a man. This one, with his terrifying sincerity, is more a Euclidean proposition than a human being. Spirituality needs a beer and a loud burp, just as sensuality needs a bed on the hard ground, a rough blanket, and a long look at the utterly improbable stars. The difficulty with the material world is that it collapses when you lean on it, and it turns to fine powder when you clutch it. Material pleasure, even of the most refined order, is never enough, if enough is what you are seeking. If there is that strange, deep longing in the heart for something that is the answer, the gorgeous golden glory you have always wanted and have never been able to find or define, the thing that is finally for real and for keeps, the eternal home, then anything in the physical or intellectual universe that is asked to be that will collapse. But it is sour grapes to despise the material world for that reason. The answer, the eternal home, will never, never be found so long as you are seeking it, for the simple reason that it is yourself. Not the self that you are aware of, that you can love and hate, but the one that always vanishes when you look for it. As soon as you realize that you are a creator, you have no further need to see it. Obviously, this is Watts speaking here, that's very Watts. You are the creator. You have no further need to see it, to try to make it an objective experience. This is why the mystics call the highest knowledge unknowing.
Mhm.
So,
Mark's happy
but that,
to read Alan Watts.
yeah. So
Yeah.
like there was this his call towards like, and I like what he's going with it. I don't know if like I can completely track with him, but I like his
Yeah, that was
idea of
great. That was great. I thought that was super relevant.
spiritual materialism, like that idea of like we
Well,
need to
that's
look at the value of both, like not looking at them as some separate, they're on the same continuum of being.
right. And
You know.
like Alan Watts is like the rough-haired shirt of spiritual materialism, whereas now we have Ian McGilchrist. And
Right.
he's talking about the matter with things.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the same message, if only people would hear it.
Yeah.
You know?
I dig it.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting too is like this is, Watts is what, 60s and 70s predominantly is when he's kind of
Right.
in most of his public work. But they were calling for this stuff, back in the 60s. They were beginning to see the problems that we are going to face as a technological society. And if we continue, like in my mind, in the like this Cartesian dualism that allows spirit and matter to exist as some separate like like completely sequestered realities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like we find ourselves in the very position that we're in right now.
Yeah.
And so it's like, he was talking about this like 50 years ago.
Divided. So that's what dualism does. It divides us, right?
Mhm.
And we say things like this or that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So-
And then when you say all is one, everybody goes, oh. But they don't understand that in order to understand that, you actually have to discover who you are. Like that is the depth of the language that George MacDonald describes as having width and breadth, but it also has depth, right? And so when you discover who you are, which you will very quickly, if you make that journey, if you dare, okay, because it's kind of like, I know, like from the dream that I had for many years, you open that little cellar door that takes you down there, and it's like a cold wind that says, "Don't come down here," right? But when you get down in there, you realize that you are many. Okay.
True.
And that many is one.
Yeah, I've been watching the Bulgakov Emil Bulk, the Apocalypse of John series, and I got to one where Nate was talking about the multi-unity. I was like, I like that. I like that.
That's a Bulgakov thing.
Yeah, I like that that term, as it were.
That's how God described. Yeah, and when I hear a lot of conversation, whether it's here or in other places, what I'm hearing oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes, is people trying to, because they have done what McGilchrist finds to be the most important thing, they've made a distinction with division, which is the result of dualism, right? A distinction with division. And but
we got it. Let's get that one out of here. I'm not logged in.
I haven't been watching the chat. Is there something crazy going on?
Uh, can I get rid of stuff? I don't know how. I don't know how that.
Distinction without division.
Okay, we'll just do that, and then we'll do that. There. God, how's that?
Yeah,
I figured
I
it
think
out.
that's good.
I don't know
Yeah.
what they were saying, so.
I didn't even
It's
look.
probably better that
Oh, there's
probably. So anyway, I
Yeah,
don't
just,
remember where.
just ignore. I'm not even. I haven't looked. You don't get caught up. Sherry, you were talking about distinction without division. Okay. Is it someone in the chat or something? I don't know.
Sorry,
I don't know.
I just have to kick some people here.
Hmm.
All kinds of fun stuff happening all at once here.
Temporary, not permanent bans, of course, because distinction without ultimate division, of course.
Sorry, I have to do the thing. Oh my God. Well, we're being bombed, guys, by something here.
Maybe it means we're on fire.
And it's destroying the conversation.
It really is. You could just shut the chat down, I think.
No, well,
Don't you?
I don't know.
I don't think I can shut it down. I have to end the stream.
Well,
which
you
is
could also
normal.
just keep talking unless you like to, unless you want to like put it to a stop or something. But
I don't know how to do that, Nathaniel. Where would I find that?
I'm not sure. I'm not. I do not know. I don't know how y'all read the chat while doing live streams. I'm always reading, and then people respond to things in the chat. I was like, oh.
Okay, I'm just gonna see if I can figure something out here, because why not?
GPT. How do I turn it to subscriber only?
Well, I would hate to let this derail thing. So Sherry, well, you're trying to figure that out. I got a question for Jonathan. So Jonathan, like, I'm just gonna hide the chat view so I don't have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
It won't distract me.
Yeah.
Your channel, dude. I love your channel. Like, tell me a little bit about what kind of brought you into that space, essentially.
Sure. Well, that's cool to hear. Thanks. Thanks for saying so. Well, I won't belabor the point, but it was just that I had to put it ultra simply. I had some hard psychedelic experiences, and then I went to the YouTubes looking for answers. And a couple of my favorite channels were like the Alan Watts, Terrence McKenna little clip channels, and they would put some music, but not like in a particular. They would just like slap some thing. But it's interesting that a lot of times actually when you just slap something on that's the same length. Like if you get find a prefer hopefully copyright or record label free song, you slap it on. Sometimes it'll just fit. It's crazy how people speak with these, timings. Sometimes there's rhythmic things, but I just like that type of stuff. I like that form of content, as it were, as we like to call it these days, and yeah, and it helped. I don't know, just also friends and stuff were always complaining, oh, you send me these long videos and I don't have time to watch them, so I would just make some clips, and also it's just helpful for remembering like the things that stand out to me. So yeah, that's kind of nothing crazy. I didn't like have a big grand plan for it, but yeah.
Yeah, you cover like a lot of very fascinating subjects there, and I like how you kind of clip it down a little bit. As a guy, like I used to be able to spend a lot more time doing, like an hour-long video now for me is like it's definitely a time commitment that I'm not able to make that. So when I'm able to like hit and just see what you're putting up there, it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked them. Yeah, as I mentioned, it's kind of been in limbo for a little bit, it's like a long, detailed story, but at the moment it seems like there's still process is happening. Hopefully that my channel will be back. Is like I don't know. The Spark Notes is that somebody has a media manager guy for their channel, and they strike some things. So then I contacted the YouTube person, and then they asked, they said, yeah, I'll fix this. And then it's just been a, like the not like long, just processes and time limits and delays and such. But I don't know. I've been starting a little bit more, so just feeling like maybe maybe it's just something I'm supposed to like accept or something. But generally, I'd be pretty bummed because I had over 1,500 clips and conversations and stuff, and just lots of, I managed to extract them all such that I have them all on a hard drive, but it's just a lot of work, and it's like also the time frame, like when I post them, it's like an interesting thing for like remembering and such, like when I was doing certain things or whatever, and my playlists and stuff. But anyway, aside from me, so that would be, I sorry, just but my channel's been in a little bit of limbo for a while now, over a month, I think, or around a month. But it's hopefully it'll be back, and it's cool to hear that you were liking that. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah. So like, and then like, just specifically, like maybe a little bit more of a specific question, like what sparked your interest, like in the astrological stuff?
Man, I have to check myself. I don't want to, I don't know shit ultimately, of course, but well, with that, it was kind of with Terrence McKenna talking about the I Ching a little bit, that kind of put that sort of vibe in there in terms of like there being some sort of pattern to the way that things happen, and then I don't know, it's just kind of like after those crazy initial experiences, like kind of having some sense that there was a little, some sort of deeper pattern or something. And then you have Peterson and Peugeot kind of talking about pattern and stuff, but it was just, I think a couple of times in particular, I was like, oh, I'm having a particularly intense or emotional night, and then I noticed that there's a full moon or something, and so it's just kind of like that. But then you may have heard me mention that channel, Galahad or Adonis. I remember when that was a big turning point for me, finding that channel, because when I saw those videos, like the kind of two main things that the two driving impulses, at least two of the main ones, were I need to learn more about Christianity, and I want to learn more about astrology, because that was kind of like a big thing. And yeah, those would be the main things.
That's interesting, man. Yeah, I enjoy that pattern aspect as well. Hey, Sherry, are we doing okay here? Like, or do we need to? What do you think?
Well, I don't know. Like, if these people want to spend their time on the internet being assholes, they're more than welcome. I'm not paying any attention to them, so I don't know who they're talking to.
Subscriber.
That's how I feel. Maybe they could go find somebody else to play with or bully, really. So go for it.
Let's ask the robot. How do you change a?
I looked for how do I do it to subscribers only, and I can't find. There's lots of info for YouTube, but there's nothing for StreamYard that I could find.
Oh yeah, maybe it would have to be on the YouTube one.
Yeah. So I don't know. It doesn't matter unless it's bothering others, and there's probably a lot of people who are in the chat are gone now because they don't want to look at it. And I don't blame them. But
Demons and Specters, or maybe not demons, but have you watched any more of that nostalgia podcast? I'm not sure if I've mentioned.
No, I haven't. No.
Chet, have you heard about that one? It's
I haven't. No.
That's Sebastian Morello.
Yeah.
Sebastian Morello. He's
British laddie.
Well, he's got a YouTube channel called the European Conservative, and he did a really great long form interview with Ian McGilchrist, and then he did one that I loved with a Catholic bishop in Norway who wrote a book called The Devoured Man,
Yeah,
which
that's
is just beautiful. Like
so good. And they were sitting on a bench, and then they were eating together. It was very.
Same with McGilchrist. The McGilchrist, there's a lot of walking and talking and walking through the gardens and at restaurants, and it's a very on the move, embodied kind of thing.
He
which
just
is good.
and he just started a podcast called the Nostalgia Podcast
With a G.
Yes, and he had one that I had just watched. Why is it coming to mind? That he said a thing about something that we were saying, which I've forgotten. It's oh yeah, he was saying about how the internet, it's all the it's specters and avatars and profiles that you don't know who these people actually are. It's kind of, and that opens the imaginal space, right? So that you can fill in all the gaps with your mind, and it's just we don't know each other. We don't know each other here, and that's ultimately how it is. Like people like to think that they, I don't know. I'm just so over all the tech shit. The only reason I deal with it is because it's where the people are, and it's like,
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about it too, like, is I think that we take I think, privacy and those things are important in like our online, the way we comport ourselves online. Like I get that, but like, it's kind of like, I look at our online identity as kind of, it's it's a virtualized reflection of who we are.
yeah, it's
Right.
very narrow.
And so it doesn't give anybody the full picture. It's kind of a snapshot of
Sure.
it's like a pixelated version of,
Yeah,
like you're getting a pixelated version of me in your
and
interaction
it kind of fits
here.
with the whole. It kind of fits with the nominalism, definitionalism thing as well. It's like, because you can't really understand a text without the context. Maybe the midrash or however you want to put it, right? Like the people are talking about the text, and with it's the context of who I am. For example, I'm just gonna, I haven't read anything that's going on in the chat, but I'm just gonna assume that they're bullying me or something. I don't know.
Oh no, it just looks like they're bombing the
It's gone
chat
now. They're gone.
section.
They're gone. I could tell when the number went back to.
Anyway, the point is just that regardless, it's just people don't know the context of any of virtual. I don't know. It's like everybody. I remember Chad, I guess, was particularly struck at the last in-person event. You guys, look, you're three-dimensional. Whoa, it's crazy. Like, it is.
Mhm.
Of course, it's not to say that these are useless, but I'm just so over, like, YouTube comments sometimes are just absurd. Like,
well, I like interacting in live streams with people who are watching, and it's usually a great group of people, right?
Yeah, it usually is. I mean, it's usually like, I mean, it is what you make of it.
Well,
Right?
that's okay.
This
People,
experience
it's no different than it was when I was a kid, and all of a sudden a group of rowdies would come around the corner kicking a can, and you knew you were going to be in trouble any minute because.
And I may or may not have been in one or two of those obnoxious crowds myself as a young man.
I have to tell you, since this is just chatting, I'm going to tell you a really funny story. So I was like, it was my first year of high school, so I was about 14, and I was going to. We had moved in the middle of the school year, of course, and to another side of town, and so I had to catch a city bus to my school, which I was finishing at, because I was actually supposed to be in this other district at a different school. And so I used to stand in front of the bus stop every school day morning in front of this huge cathedral, and it was right on a main street in this town that I lived in. There's lots of traffic. And I'm standing there, and these little kids come running up to me. They're like boys, 10 years old, maybe 11, tops, like probably 9. And they're like, we're going to tie you to that bus stop. And it was just like a metal pole,
And at that age, you said you were 14?
I was 14 and I thought, oh,
14-year-old girls are
I-
way more put together than 10-year-old boys.
well, and I just was ignoring them
Substantially,
because I thought
yes.
they were just like little flies, and I was like, oh. And I'm telling you, they had ropes, eh? And within seconds, they went into action, and they wrapped those ropes, they ran around me like this, and then and then they left, and I'm like,
That's so funny.
tied to the bus. I was like, how did that even happen?
Well, it's so
Now,
funny because
after
we
that,
see
I
that.
never underestimated a 10-year-old boy.
Yeah.
We have that. Now we
Yeah,
have the
thanks.
internet can kickers.
Well, we haven't in my town right now. We've got like these. So I'm in like a coastal town here in Southern California, and like so out on the streets, like kids don't ride bikes anymore. They're riding the e-bikes out here.
Hey, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate that. But so there's like it feels like instead of Sons of Anarchy, the biker show, it's like the Kids of Anarchy. Like it's just gangs of kids on e-bikes just rolling everywhere, and it's just mayhem. Because you can run into a snarky bunch, and they will dress you down. A bunch of 12-year-olds just being obnoxious. You got to get some level I can respect it even.
Sure.
Robert.
Did you have more to say about a distinction division thing? Like you were. Do you remember?
I'll say that again.
Distinction without division, and how that connected to, because we were talking about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
It's a great concept. I mean, I like it.
Well, this is, Nate made the point. This is what the Trinity is illustrating.
Yeah, the
distinction without division, right?
Yeah.
And it's a concept that for some reason, and I don't know, like people make fun of the kumbaya word, right? But isn't kumbaya distinction without division?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that really what it is?
I suppose.
And humanity finds that, as they'd say in German, lächerlich, which means laughable. Right? There's something weak about kumbaya to people. It's like they need that, well, maybe it's that tension that we talked about earlier. But if you understand distinction without division in the proper way, it can only exist with tension, right? Like I actually think that's. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's like you talking about with the ligaments or something, with the, right? Something about how there's the tension with, like the multi-unity, the image that always comes to my mind is the human body. Where all these various cells doing their personalized functions, as it were, but they cohere as this larger body, and the tension. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm reminded also.
But at the same time, the body is also kumbaya. Otherwise, you'd be like.
Yeah. I was just thinking about because
there's a kumbaya going on there, right?
It reminds me of rigor mortis, like how it's almost like the fact that there's tension allows for the movement. Like I remember you said something about the.
I don't know. I might have been when you're mentioning it. I'm just thinking about how Matthias Desmet talks about the body as a stringed instrument.
Yeah.
Right. It's tendon stretched on bone.
Yeah.
And so it's meant to pick up resonance. Because for him, vibration, which is what resonance is kind of like the underlying it's the thing that bonds human beings psychologically together, is that they resonate with each other and they resonate with something, right? And we even use that term. So, yeah.
Which reminds me of the Cora, as we were talking about, with and it also fits with the stuff about the ether,
Well, this is a really good question, because for many years I thought no. But I think if you have your spiritual eyes, right, you can understand it with your heart. So, and what it will actually do is resonate. That's what the paradox will do. It's like a paradox sends out shock waves that
Yeah.
resonate, right? And a good example for me of a paradox is the burning bush, right? It's a fire and wood, right? They never stay together. The fire will consume the wood. So, but this is a bush that doesn't burn. And in the Orthodox Church, that's an image of the Virgin, right? She carries the divine, but she is not consumed by it. So she carries the divine spark, because guess what? Mary was Jewish, and the people who wrote those scriptures were Jewish, and so they knew about divine sparks, and they knew about shattered vessels, and they knew that when the divine spark entered the vessel, it shattered it, it broke it, right? So, but Mary was the vessel that didn't break. She was the bush that didn't burn. She was not consumed, right?
I think you could probably also see in as far as Christ goes, like the harrowing of hell, or however you want to put it, like where
Hey guys, I've got to get an early start, so I don't want to have a late night tonight. So I got a couple of things I got to take care of. Jonathan, it was such a pleasure. Sherry, it was so good to see you.
You too.
It's been too long. We'll have to have a conversation again soon. And Jonathan, maybe you and I can talk sometime soon.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to, man. Yeah, cool.
Awesome. All right, take care.
Have a good night. Bye-bye.
The burning bush, also with the paradox, never fully understanding a paradox. Yes, it all is very good.
Yeah, well, see, I don't think that, like, the whole idea that blah, blah, blah. I'm getting tired now.
Me too. Yeah, we could probably wrap it up shortly if you wish.
Well, the reason I like to use the burning bush as an example of paradox is because the only response to it is to take off your shoes.
The garments, skin.
Well, no, to get grounded. That's what I would call it.
Yes.
Right? It's a holy place. A paradox is a holy place.
Yeah.
So,
and the paradox is every human, like the mystical thing that we can never fully understand. And there's something I would really recommend the recent conversation with John Vervaeke and DC Schindler to everyone, particularly around a particular point, if I could find it. But they were talking about this because there's something about love, and the love being the relation of the Trinity, right? Where it's like the apophatic, canonic participation in the mystery, and that we are transformed by that. John Vervaeke loves to talk about how it's conformity, contact epistemology, and it goes through our transformation, like through our transformation, like the form we participate in their form, and particularly the thing about like seeing yourself through someone else's eyes, but somehow also not losing yourself, living in that tension in between.
Yeah.
So good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, Donnie, it's so good to see you. I don't know if you're here still, but it's great to see you. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, folks. Sorry about that thing that happened. Kind of threw us all off there for a minute until I realized all you have to do is go away because they're just trying to distract you.
I think we got by. We didn't get wrapped up to the tree. We managed. That's pretty crazy. How long were you wrapped to this?
Man. And then my school bus, well, it was a city bus, comes.
Oh my
God. He opens the door, and he's one of these like bus drivers who's just like staring out the window, and nobody gets on, so he drives away, and I'm like, I don't even remember how I got loose. I think I finally just wriggled myself loose, and I walked home, and I was crying.
That's crazy.
Missed my day at school that day, and thought, okay, never again am I going to let that happen to me.
That's when Sherry learned self-defense.
Well, it was, you know what? I literally didn't pay them any attention, and that's how they did it.
Hmm.
I thought they were stupid. You know, I had little brothers that age, right? So I was kind of used to little boys.
It's like a dog. It's like a dog. If they approach with all the bark,
Yeah.
then if you don't buy into it,
It was
then
one of them, you know, when people ask you, what was your most embarrassing moment? I always want to surprise people with, the most embarrassing moment I ever had was when 4 little boys tied me to a bus stop. It sounds like impossible. But they did. And I think that's probably, you know, bravo for them, right? They probably still talk about it if they even know each other. Remember that time we tied that girl to the bus? Yeah.
Tis a wild world.
Totally. Very I Love Lucy. It was one of those moments that, you know, like I watched a movie years ago called After Hours with I don't remember his name. He was not a good anyway. It was about a guy who meets a girl on a bus and he goes on this wild, spontaneous date with her, and they end up the whole thing just gets so bizarre. And in the very end, he's been plastered into a sculpture, right? And he figures he's dead. Like nobody will ever find him. And then some thieves steal the sculpture and they're taking off, right? They're taking off in a van and the door flies open and he falls out and smashes on the road right in front of his apartment, like right where the whole story started.
And then, yeah, but too, one, you know, another hour.
It's like a whole lifetime in 12 hours, right? Like a whole lifetime of events that are just so bizarre. And I watched that movie and it gave me the most uncanny feeling because I have had nights like that. I tell you, I never did get plastered into a sculpture, but I came very close. Anyway, but those are all my secrets. And I'm not telling them. Yeah, we were on our my husband and I were on our honeymoon when we saw that movie, and we were driving through Saskatchewan, like flat as a, you know, just flat prairies, and there was a drive-in theater. And my husband had never been to one because he came from Europe and they didn't have them. He's like, we have to go to this movie. This is fantastic. And I'm sitting there watching this movie going, well, this is making me feel really weird. I was traumatized watching that movie. It's a good one. I can highly recommend it.
Heard that.
Yeah, you remember that, Mark? Who was that guy? Who was that? Dudley something or other. Is it Dudley Moore? No, it wasn't Dudley Moore. And Rosanna Arquette was in it, I think. Yeah. Very
I don't want to be that guy that has to symbolically analyze everything. But the image of the falling out of the metal church as we're in the statue, you know, we've talked about statues before. It's kind of, I don't know, I feel like we could probably do another hour just thinking about maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do a movie review. We'll do a Grail Country movie screening where we all hop in the live stream and we all hit play on the movie at the same time. And then we talk about it like Jonathan Pajot. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one. But Jonathan Pajot, he does things like Hollywood blockbusters. And if I know Grail Country, we'd be doing things like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
1 hour, like, total analysis of it.
And everyone would be like,
It's interesting that you say that. Like that Jonathan Peugeot doesn't like do any more. It's usually more so just like the pop cultural stuff that he's analyzing, or like
which is something that I personally never really understood. First of all, I don't like pop culture. I don't participate in pop culture. And I don't watch those movies. Like,
neither. I
didn't watch The Joker, and I didn't, I'm not watching.
Actually, I still think it was kind of, I don't know. I tend to be very skeptical about like the, who's behind the making of all these movies, et cetera, et cetera. But that one was pretty artful, and
Tarkovsky movies I haven't watched yet, but I'm going to definitely. But yeah, so
I don't know. Maybe it's just that like that's where all the people are, in terms of he's trying to bring the symbolic worldview to like the masses.
Well, I mean, those some of those films do give you a kind of like a
pulse in the culture.
The pulse. That's the word of the the pop culture.
Yeah.
But to me, the pop culture is that exactly what Matthias Desmet talks about when he says you've got 40% of the population, or 30% of the population goes with the propaganda. 30% absolutely says no to it, and 40% is agnostic. Well, that's popular culture to me. It's the agnostic, the fence sitters, the ones that go, "Oh, what are you doing? Oh, okay." Right.
Yeah.
They were talking about, what was that? I watched something yesterday. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's this experiment that I know, it was Joe Rogan talking to Chase Hughes. You got to watch that. That is amazing. And he was talking about this line experiment that they did in the 60s, where they had these 3 lines, right? And one was short, one was middle, one was long. And then they showed a line and they said, which one of those 3 lines is the same length as this line? And it was obvious. It was whatever, number C, right? B or C. There's only one volunteer in the experiment. Everybody else was part of it. But he thought, or they thought, they were all volunteers. And everybody said A.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or they do the ones where they like pretend.
Something like 100% of the people said A, even though it was obviously wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and then they do the ones where it's like everybody secretly in on it, and they like pretend like someone's invisible, and then the person has like a breakdown.
Oh, that's just brutal.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what I'm saying with that is that, to me, that's what popular culture is. So people get really excited about something, and I'm like, don't do it.
It would be interesting to see Peugeot do, like, I imagine he's done some stuff where it's more so like an artistic, or like some sort of movie that like he holds in high regard or something.
I'm sure he has many.
Yeah.
I mean, I do know that a lot of the writings that he talks about often are.
Yeah, that's true. Like he talks about Tolkien and.
Well, not just them, but like Life of Moses by St. Gregory of Nyssa is a allegorical or analogical look at Moses' life, and Hymns of Paradise by St. Ephraim the Syrian. And, that's, Jonathan is there's a lot more to Jonathan than floats on the surface.
Yeah, no, I have tons of respect for Jonathan Peugeot.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does like to scapegoat psychedelics occasionally, in my opinion, or whatever word, demonize perhaps. But
Really, Mark? They diagnose the person with oppositional disorder, defiance disorder.
I don't accept your I don't accept your diagnosis. I am not oppositional. All right.
Well, the best way to avoid having that thrown in your face is just to be ignorant. That's been my solution. Just be ignorant. And so I stay away from a lot of things. Like, I never was a movie watcher. I never was.
And if I'm like in a room and there's like the news playing or something, I'm like actively
not listening.
Not be affected by this black magic. It's like, yeah. For real.
I remember finding out that ignorance is bliss doesn't work before the law. I remember feeling like, damn it, that's not fair. What if I just said I didn't know? That's the only place it doesn't work, though.
I didn't know I was driving so fast.
But it's true. Ignorance is bliss, right? There's a certain bliss attached to it that can be virtuous as long as it's not malevolent, let's say. So I have always been careful about what I put into my head.
Yeah, me too. I've never
want to know.
I've never been a fan of like I think a lot of people have suffered in this regard, whether it be horror movies or bad fire and brimstone sermons or whatever, or demonic, fairy tales, or like certain, I just think, it's like planting seeds in your mind that then you have nightmares, and this like informs the type of visualizations that you'd have. Or if you take psychedelics, like, if you've watched a ton of horror movies and you're super scared of the owl man or whatever, or what's it, what is the
owl man? I don't know who the owl
Mothman. Yeah, it's like,
the Mothman.
I don't know. I don't know these things because I don't.
I was showing this to
because
I was showing this to Rigel. Do you remember this book?
Yes, that was one of my favorite books as a kid. Yes, Where the Wild Things Are.
Ignorance and Naivety.
Yeah.
Poor partners. Oh, that's interesting. I've always been really proud of the fact that I'm ignorant and naive. But this, Where the Wild Things Are. So I have a copy of The Golden Key by George MacDonald upstairs, and I bought it because it was illustrated and published by Maurice Sendak. And I found out that he was highly influenced by George MacDonald. And one of the things that always surprised me about this book was how terrifying it is, and yet children like it.
Yeah.
I'm not ignorant. Well, I'm not rude. There's a lot of things I don't know, so that's what I consider ignorant.
I was like,
I don't know facts. I don't know, I have stacks and stacks of books, Mark, that I don't read because I just can't. I always think to myself, I have many of them I bought because I was afraid I wouldn't be able to get copies of them anymore. So that's why I bought them, but I just put them on my shelf because I'm kind of like, I'll get permission to read them one day. I
do that sometimes as well.
I'm very woo. Like, look at Max. Isn't he cute?
Yeah.
He's happy.
It's been so long since I.
And then all of a sudden, what the heck?
Yes.
Yeah, I was saying to Rigel that, this book, Where the Wild Things Are, it's repulsive, and then it attracts, and then it repulses and attracts. And that's that kind of thing that Vervaeke was saying about beauty can be terrifying, right? And what's beautiful about this book is that he's showing how rich and deep and wide the imagination actually is, and how it forms and develops character
Mhm.
in a child.
I remember the conclusion, right? Aren't they kind of like friends basically in the end? Friends with the monsters.
I don't remember.
With the monsters.
A long time since it was published in 1963. He sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day and into the night of his very own room, which is very George MacDonald. And there's no concept of time, you know?
Glorious.
He gave up being king of where the wild things are. See, he became the king.
See, like yeah, I'm pretty sure they were on good terms, right? At the end,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
on good terms with the monsters.
Look, they're having a blast.
Dancing.
Anyway, I'm going to bore people to death with this book. So I just wanted to read this from Cody. I think ignorance works best when instead of defending a position, like our traditional apologetics, we ask questions and let people question. Yes, absolutely. And that's how it works for me, Cody. Like what I find in that in the way that I stay ignorant, you know, like deliberately not reading theological works and so on, is it gives me the ability to formulate questions, which I think is actually the main function of the imagination. The part in the Golden Key where the lady stays by the black. I know. That's one of my favorite. Yeah, and we're just doing Lilith in the. Oh, Socrates did that too. Oh, interesting. See, that's where my ignorance comes in. I don't know anything about Socrates, so, but that's okay.
I always like the thing where ignorance could also be like ignorance, like ignoring.
Yeah.
And like with relevance realization, opponent processing of ignoring and kind of ignoring and noticing or something, like you have to have them both.
Well, the posing questions. Okay, so you meant like Socrates posing questions. The posing questions thing has everything to do. This is how I've thought it through with attention. You can't pose a question about something if it hasn't come into your field of attention, right? So, which means in order to ask good questions, you have to pay attention to almost everything.
You have to have a holistic understanding.
Yeah. And we were just in the Discord the other day. Joseph, I just want to read this to you really quick, and then I guess I'll Nathaniel sent me a message. We can sign off here, but I just wanted to read it because this is really interesting, actually.
Sure, yeah.
I've always wondered about laughter. Like, why do we laugh? I always imagined if my sheep gathered together, if I saw my sheep out in the pasture and they were all sitting down and one of them was in the front and they were all silent, and then all of a sudden they go, ah! You know?
Have you seen the one?
Why are they doing that?
Have you seen the one where it's the lady gets surprised by the sheep goes bah. She's like, oh.
No, I don't know.
I'll send
it. I know, I just have to find this thing. Oh, here, humor. So Joseph sent, he posted a really great thing from David White. Humor tells us not to take any names we have assigned ourselves or the world too seriously. Humor tells us that we can be more than what we seem, someone larger and more able for the world than all the smaller ways we have previously named ourselves. And then I said, my response was, humor tells us not to take any names we have assigned ourselves too seriously. I took the quote. And I said, antinomian.
Mm.
A categorical no to categories.
Mm.
Frame breaking. Love it. Obviously, this is what we need to do or have done to us from time to time. We co-create by shattering our own vessels. Right?
Mm. Oh, yes.
And what the comedian does is bring attention to the things that we have fallen into like a rut with, but as a group, right? That's why everyone can laugh, because we all realize, oh, we've just been following along.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's a Discord for Grail Country, Cody. I don't know if you're on Bridges of Meaning, but I don't know how to do an invite to the Discord. Again,
Someone will hook you up.
blissfully ignorant.
Yeah, someone will hook you up.
But yeah, there is something really beautiful about humor, and I thought that thing that Joseph posted was so good in that
Yeah.
in that regard, because I have thought about the fact that we laugh, and laughter is just quirky.
Yeah. I've actually been thinking about that a little bit over the past week or so too. Just like every once in a while, a little thought crosses.
It almost sounds like the shattering of a vessel. It's like we shatter our vessel when we laugh. You know, if you're thinking about eurythmy, Jonathan, right?
Yes. Kind of, yeah, for sure. Did very. I had something else. About, but I've forgotten this.
Mm-hmm.
Something about. Yes.
Well, that's just probably because it's getting too late and we should stop talking.
Oh yeah, I think that's probably what I was going to say. That I've gotten to the point where it's just so many good things to keep up.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining me, Jonathan.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank everybody else here for joining us. And it was a good just chatting. I've thought the corner has been a little, slow on the live streams. So thought it might be nice.
I think Luke is doing like a little fast for Lent, as it were.
Yeah.
From the social medias. So.
Yeah, and others might follow suit too. So.
Yeah. Perhaps we'll fill the space with another sometime.
Good night, all. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us.
Everybody.
What the heck is happening here? Sorry. Play outro?
Oh.
Sorry, guys. Something has changed. Do we have an outro?
Smooth outro. Fade out. Fade out.